Welcome, welcome, welcome. This is Peter Winnick. I'm the founder and CEO at Thought Leadership Leverage, and you're joining us on the podcast today, which is Leveraging Thought Leadership. My guest is John Winsor. He's a globally recognized leader in the future of work and AI-driven workforce strategies. He has been recently appointed as an executive fellow at Harvard Business School's Digital Design and Data Institute. He has been known for his ability to translate complex innovations into actionable strategies. He's advised Fortune 500s and done a bunch of other cool things that we'll find out about, including writing a couple books along the way and some other fun stuff. So welcome, John. What's going on?
Hey, thanks, Peter. Good to be here.
So let's start with how the heck did all this happen, right? So give me the how did we wind up where we are today?
Oh man. Well, I mean, if you go way back, I started a publishing company
Yeah.
because I just had this desire to, I worked for a publishing company, but I really wanted to I saw a magazine. I wrote a book called Fitness on the Road and was out on the West Coast, saw a magazine that I thought would be applicable here called City Sports and, decided to kind of copy that and started in Colorado. And that launched on this 15-year journey, magazines.
Wait, time out. And this for those of you under 40 or 45,
Yeah.
Google magazines, they were
Yeah, there were these
similar to
things.
like
Yeah, they
not
were
quite
popular.
stone tablets, but we liked
Yeah.
them. We used to get them delivered and they would be in doctor's offices and we liked them actually for a
I
long
know, we'd wait a month for the information,
Yeah.
right? It was, like, crazy. What
Yeah.
a crazy concept.
Yeah.
Yeah, so did that for a while and sold that to Condé Nast and, became pretty successfully, and it was really interested in this idea of early adoptive consumers, like, there's Everett Rogers back in the '50s had this thing
Mhm.
called the diffusion curve, and then early
Mhm.
adopters, like innovators, back to laggards. And so I found that the women we worked with at Women's Sports and Fitness were all early adoptive consumers that influenced a lot of other people. And after the publishing journey, I set up a company to do, and I coined the phrase co-creation with a book called Beyond the Brand and wrote a bunch of other books around co-creation, thinking about how do we take, as a leader, how do we think about connecting with early adoptive consumers that were going to drive like insights into where the market was going and then
Yeah.
product innovation. So
So
did
so
that.
let me ask a couple things here. So given that you come from publishing, right?
Yeah.
You've written a bunch of books,
Right.
right? So one question that comes to mind is how do you know what is the right modality for the right idea at the right moment in time? And what I mean by that is, it used to be a great compliment to say to someone that gave like a TED talk, like, wow, that's awesome. That should be a book. But
Yeah.
I think the opposite is often too true, where you read a book and you're like, it kind of could have stayed a TED talk
No,
at
I
18
know. I
minutes. So
know.
how do
Right.
you decide that? Because you've also figured out what's good for short term, medium
Yeah.
length, long term.
Yeah, I don't know if I figured it out, but I think that's one of my biggest frustrations of books, right? Is like, man, that could have been a 20-page pamphlet or or
Right.
an article, right? It's like so much filler. I think the way I look at books, I'm very selfish. The reason I write books is I'm trying to figure something out. And a book is a great device to create a discipline around creating a system or a framework.
Okay, but that should always be a reason. It might not be the reason, but I think
Yeah.
for why would you write a book if it's not something that you're wrestling with? Like, what's the point, right? Other
Yeah,
than
that's true. That's true. Although I think a lot of books are written because people want to, use it as a platform to go speak and things like that. And so I
But
mean,
they're trying to reverse engineer and get the lightning in a bottle of, "Ooh, what does the market want right now?
for sure.
Let's throw the word AI into my expertise," and that
Exactly.
but that has no stand in my humble opinion, maybe
Yeah,
not
yeah, no, I
humble,
agree. There's a
that
lot
has
of
no
people.
legs, right,
Yeah,
if
I
you're being
know. I know.
opportunistic that
I
way.
agree. Yeah, I mean, I think, I think thought leaders need to go have a lot of experience. I mean, I wrote that piece that you, and that's why I
Yeah,
connected as thought doers. And I think thought leaders are really powerful. I think that, but it's based on their experiences. And so go have a bunch of really killer specific experiences and go kind of into the muck of the future or wherever and
sure.
figure stuff out and then come back and tell the story, right? That's to me the power of thought leaders. That's why, you
But
know,
go back to the modality. So one school of thought, and I just wanna get where you land on this, is if you're not trying to catch lightning in a bottle,
right.
one school of thought is, "Hey, I'm kind of thinking maybe wrestling with this thing. Let me throw out a blog post. Let me throw out a couple little things and
Yeah.
see if there's resonance, or am I the only
Boom.
one who cares about it? Because if I'm the only one who cares about it, it's not worthy of other than my curiosity, right?"
Right.
And then sometimes what happens is you put some stuff out there and you're like, the thing that you thought was like, "Eh?" is really
Right.
far more
Crazy.
interesting.
Right. I
And then
know.
you double click on that and you double click on that and double click on that. Is that, do you
Yeah,
subscribe
no,
to that?
'cause I publish a lot, right? I publish a Substack and on
Yeah,
HBR and Forbes, and a lot of it's just to test ideas. A lot of it's just to say, "Huh, what's resonating, what's not? How does
exactly.
that add to my research?" I'm not really trying to say, I need desperately to find an idea that scales. It's more like my curiosity to say, "Wow, I have all these ideas. Like, is this like you just expressed, I think really well, is like, is this an idea that other people are having, or is this something that there's general kind of a concern in the market, or is this something that's just my fantasy or my anxiety, or it's not that big a
So then
deal?"
it's almost like if it was supply and demand, that selfish curiosity against market interest or
Yeah,
other
exactly.
curiosity is
Exactly.
is really that set point that we're looking for. I want to go back because you went through it quickly. Is yeah, you and I connected because I saw an article that you put out, which
Right.
was basically crapping on thought leaders, which I'm like, oh, this is cool, right? So
Yeah.
talk about that article and what it was about because I didn't necessarily agree with everything in it, but it got me
Right. Yeah. I mean,
thinking.
this was like a really long gestation period to write that article because I showed up at, I've done a bunch of speaking, and I guess people would
Yeah.
consider me a thought leader, but I haven't really ever done any speaking for money for a long time because I always had companies
Mhm.
that would benefit. And so I would do all this stuff. And so one of my friends, Peter Sheehan, who's a really
Yeah.
well-known
Yep.
speaker, great guy,
Yep.
love him. He challenged me. He's like, well, why don't you could make money at that? Why don't you come, hang out with our group? And when I was in his group, the first meeting I went to, it was really great. There were all these guys making, like, I couldn't believe the amount of money that people were making from speaking. And this one guy got stood up and told this great story. He's like told the story about Patrick Doyle at Domino's and how he re-engineered
Yes.
Domino's to make it into a tech company, and it was a really fantastic story from the stage. But I sat there and myself going like, well, Pat and I and Alex Bogusky were all in the room, and we did that strategy. And Crispin Porter Bogusky, the agency I was a partner in, did all that work. And but this guy on stage was talking about as a professional speaker had nothing to do with the truth. Had nothing to do, you know,
Well, maybe it was a better story the way he crafted it,
it
right? So
probably was, but I love authentic stories, and I think that's why when we think about storytelling, at least in my world, that's why outdoor stories, that's why adventure stories, that's why, climbing and surfing and like 100-foot wave, the new Dark Wizard out on HBO. Those are really resonant because they're authentic. They're like experiences and people telling stories from the experiences that they've had. And those are the things that I love, right? I love like those firsthand, like I love listening to people, thought leaders of like, what was it? Like what really happened? How did you skin your knees? How did you figure that out? What does that mean? Not something that somebody read in a HBR article
sure.
or wherever, but you're in
But
the work.
the I think the one of the points that you were making in that article is stop just being a thought leader, and you were meaning that, like, in the abstract, in isolation, in
Right,
whatever,
right.
but the theoretical has no value until it's applied, the scraping of the knee, right? So, like, you were
Yeah,
saying stop being a thought leader, being a thought doer.
right.
My take on that is, well, it's not an A or B, right? Actually, there's a time and place for both, right?
For sure. For sure. I guess I was just trying to say that it starts with some real experience, right? Like again, I went to that.
But it doesn't always though. So wait, stay there a minute because
Yeah,
in when I look at the landscape of thought leaders, they
yeah,
come from lots of different places. And
sure.
I don't mean geographies, right? So you can have an academic that
Right.
everything they put out is validated to the 11th decimal, but you put
Sure.
them into the wild and they
Right.
couldn't get lunch on their own, right? Like they would
Right.
that wouldn't work. And then you have other folks that are, they've been running a business, they're gritty, they've been in there, whatever, and they might not have the language or the research or the way to show that something is validated, but they know
Right.
they took a company from back of a napkin to 50 billion,
Totally.
right? So I think it's like, how do you get everybody to learn from everybody else?
Well, no, I totally agree with that. I mean, and I think throw in another one like Malcolm Gladwell's a great example of like being
Yeah.
a journalist, right? And I would say that my history, when I think about my career, at the end of the day, the thing that I really resonate with is being a journalist, and being a journalist means being radically curious and going out and having that kind of firsthand conversation. I don't mean that you have to go skin your knee. Is like what was the Outlier? I think was a book that Malcolm Gladwell talked a lot about like
Yeah.
age group for hockey
Yep.
players. It's not like he went and played a lot of hockey. It's just that he was super curious and he started thinking about like the data and dug into the data and
Yeah.
then made this really and so that the story he
No, and
tells is
his observation was, wait a minute, why is it like I forget, and my math could be wrong, like 65% of professional hockey players in Canada are born in January, February, or March.
right,
Q1.
exactly,
And
exactly,
it's like, oh, they were the oldest kids
right,
in the cycle. So
right,
if you're 4 years and 0 months, there's a big difference between 4 years and 0 months and 4 years and 10 months, right? At my
right,
age, nobody says they're 58 and 3/4, right?
right, exactly,
Or right?
exactly,
So,
exactly,
but that gets extrapolated because they get the resources and more tension and da 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 da
right.
than the poor kid born in October that may have been just as good, but he's a little bit shorter or not as developed yet. So, yeah, yeah,
Well, and I tried to apply it really to AI because one of the things I'm really intrigued with is this real this kind of permeable membrane now between academia and actual work. And a lot of the guys
huh.
that I work with that at, the newest, like to me, the best professors that are coming up through HBS are ones that are way into building stuff. And what I observe is that, the cost of execution is going to be zero with all these agents
So
and
stay
AI.
there for a minute because I
Yeah.
agree that there are a lot of amazing academics there, MIT, other places
Right.
where they're actually doing stuff at the same time that they're teaching.
Right.
And then a variation on that is, and I'm thinking of Harry Kramer, I'm thinking of Bill George, folks that come out of running real big
Right.
Fortune 100 businesses and say, you know what, I don't want to ride off into the sunset. I want to go and teach a little bit now.
Totally.
And it's like, okay, cool. But I think the classic traditional academic was they never left campus, right?
No,
It's like
exactly.
they were born with a tweed jacket and
For sure.
whatever. If you ever wondered how strong ideas become visible, trusted, and scalable, that's the work behind the Thought Leadership Handbook. Bill Sherman, Naren Ariel, and I wrote it for experts who are ready to move from insight to real impact. Learn more at thoughtleadershiphandbook.com and order it today at Amazon, B&N, Bookshop, or Amplify.
For
So,
sure. But I think it's kind of getting back. It's got full circle, right? Like the Bill Georges of the world had the experience of teaching, and that's why their teaching so valuable because it's real, right? It
yes.
really, and his judgment is so finely tuned because he's been through that cycle thousands of times. What you're seeing now, at least, to guys like Rem Koenig and some of the other
Yeah.
guys at HBS, they're just living the examples. They're just out there like experiencing building stuff, teaching executives how to build their own stuff. And so this rapid iteration is just really fascinating. And I think you're not going to hear from Rem
Yeah.
some theoretical thing. It always goes into a place where it's validated, it's statistically
Sure.
significant, it's all those things. But it
But that's
starts with
almost after the fact.
it
That's
is
after
after
the
the fact.
fact.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it
I
is
want to go
after the
back to something you said about sort of the journalist in you. And
right.
I think actually I think that's right, but I also think that when you think about you break up what does a thought leader do all day, right? I think there's a part of it's the journalism, there's a part of it that's
Right.
the consultant, right?
Right.
There's a part of it that's a researcher. There might be a
Right.
part of them that's a marketer,
Right.
right?
Right.
Or promoter or
Right.
whatever. And I think when people look at all the, well, yeah, it's part consulting, part this, part that, they sort of poo-poo the promoter and marketer part, right?
Mm.
And
Mhm.
and a lot of what I've seen, and I'm in a interesting place where this is like the water I swim in. I've seen some amazingly brilliant stuff, but because people don't have either the skills, the guts, the courage, whatever to
I know.
market, it doesn't see the light of day, and they
No,
just look at
exactly.
it like, oh, poo, I don't do that. Like I don't, whatever.
I know.
Now, the other side of that, there are plenty of people that are hucksters promoting garbage that's
Right.
useless and has no value. But I'm talking
Right.
about as a thought leader, if you're not spending some time promoting, marketing, being the evangelist for your ideas, nobody else will. My
No, I agree. I think it's super important. I mean, all business. I was just on a conversation with a client this morning. Is like I think with AI that's happening is execution is going to go to zero, but where the real value is relationships and sales. Like that's like very human thing, right? The relationships, the
So
having
I love that idea because, I think what was happening not all that long ago, maybe early COVID or whatever, people were going, oh my God, why would they ever pay me 50 grand to be a keynoter when I've got my stuff on YouTube, or I can
Right.
do it, on a Zoom, or I can do it there and whatever. And in fact, although the quantity of total events has gone down, the
Mhm.
quality and the highest quality speakers are making more now than they ever did.
Right.
Why? It's not
Right.
because, like, you look at Gladwell's amazing. Pretty
Right.
much everything that he's done, I can either read, listen to a podcast, listen to a
Right.
whatever. But when he's speaking live, there's something amazing about the human experience and the connection of being in a room with others, whether
For
they're
sure.
like-minded or not, being exposed to ideas. And that's never going out of style.
Yeah.
My
No,
two.
I agree. I think that, that experiences are going to be human to human experiences are going to be more and more valuable. This kind of collective learning. And I would suggest a lot of, because of the technology we're seeing, at least in my experiences at HBS, the things that really resonate with people are kind of these mass, 200 person, workshop experiences to build stuff
Right.
together that are just so incredible. I mean, you
Yeah.
walk into a
Well, the
room, right, with
hackathons and
right,
yeah.
exactly. But
Yeah.
executive level hackathon, right? Like,
Yeah.
Rem's got this great speech where he says, "Hey, I'm gonna in an hour, I'm gonna go from teaching you what agentic AI is to getting you 200 people on on a
Yep.
platform, and then your job in 45 minutes is to save 20% of your week, the time of your week." And people, you see these C-level Fortune 500 executives going like, "There is no way
No
I'm
way.
gonna do it. No
Skeptical.
way."
Yeah.
45 minutes later, there's a demo, and everybody says 75% of the people say, "I saved 20% of my week."
Right.
And that's awesome, right? To me, it's like, the best thought leaders gonna drive change, right? Like,
Yeah.
whether it's like they inspire people, their stories inspire people, they change the way
Well,
that you
at a
look at the
minimum,
world.
you have to inspire someone to think, act, do, believe, behave something different
For
than they
sure.
did before you were exposed to their ideas, right? Like,
For sure.
otherwise it's pointless, right? Like
For sure.
you know, what did you mean? I just want to clarify because it was an interesting sort of throwaway, and I think it's more than that. Well, execution goes to zero. What did you mean by that?
Well, I'm just seeing it every day. I mean, listen to a guy by the name of Nate Jones. He has a Substack, and it's
Yep.
just like yesterday. It was like, hey, this new set of technologies. If you're in a marketing department, it will save you 5 hours a week, right?
Mhm.
And then today, there's a thing on testing on GPT
Yeah.
5.5, and it was like here are the prompts I did. Build this, dingo
Right.
like pet company, and do it from like idea with one prompt to all the assets for the website, a real website that works and an investment deck and everything, 28 different assets off of one prompt in about an hour and a half, and it's like it everything from, thinking about the idea of launching a company to have everything ready to go to a investor meeting with a live
Yeah.
website, everything, you know, that would have been months worth of work. And it's one prompt. But it's awesome. Creating all this stuff's awesome. Somebody's got to go out and sell it. Somebody's got to go out and evangelize it. Somebody's got to go do it. And that's the really
Well,
tough
and somebody's got
work.
to look at somebody else and say, you know what, John, I'm not sure about this idea. It sounds a little cockamamie to me, but I
Right.
get you and I trust you. And I know you wouldn't bring
E-
me something that's crap because we have
Right.
a history in a
Exactly.
relationship.
Well, exactly. It's all about relationships. And that to me, the human value, it's the human judgment. It's like what is good, what is not. But there always been ideas through history that just don't seem to scale. My best, funnest thing. Do you know about the QWERTY keyboard story?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Which
Yep.
I don't know if your audience has, but
Well,
if you
say,
look
yeah,
at your
no.
yeah, if you look at your keyboard, the upper left hand
Yep.
corner is QWERTY. Well, the reason it's that is that back in the day when typewriters had arms that threw up,
Yeah.
letters, that
It was,
people were going too fast,
yeah.
and so they needed to figure out a way to slow people's typing down so that the arms didn't get stuck. And so by creating the keyboard that we have now, it's actually slower than other ways to type. Yet
Right.
it's so ingrained in our culture. Many, many, many people have tried to make a faster
Yes.
keyboard. It's very easy to make a faster keyboard. None of us can change culturally to want to type faster than we do. So these cultural things, the innovations just die because culture just won't accept them. And
Right.
it's just the way it works, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Love it. Well, this has been awesome. I appreciate your time and your
yeah,
thoughtfulness. And
no, it's super great. I have a lot to learn about being a thought leader, so I look forward to tapping into your resources and listening to your podcasts, and please
Good
teach me
stuff.
more.
Great. Oh, I hope to do that. Thank you. Good stuff. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. Take care.
To learn more about Thought Leadership Leverage, please visit our website at thoughtleadershipleverage.com. To reach me directly, feel free to email me at peter@thoughtleadershipleverage.com. And please subscribe to Leveraging Thought Leadership on iTunes or your favorite podcast app to get your weekly episode automatically.